Hello everyone and welcome to a new Castlevania Symphony of the Night Mega Drive update. It's been a while since I've done one of these developers' diaries, so let's get straight into it. Just as with the previous couple of years, I decided this year to rewrite the entire game engine from scratch. This obviously takes up quite a lot of time, but I'm someone who's been learning as I go along and there's no guide on how to do this, so I've just had to work out by myself. As you know, there were a couple of bugs in the previous build, the demo released at Christmas, and also just adding new features became very difficult with the old engine, so a rewrite was something I had to do. Fortunately, with how this new code has worked out, I'm very confident that I won't have to do any kind of rewrite at any point in the future. That means that next year I won't have to waste time rewriting the whole thing again. I can just simply keep adding new levels and enemies and so on. I'll save all the technical details for a future tutorial on how to create your own game structure, but for everyone watching today, I think you'll recognise that the whole ROM is looking more like a game now rather than an actual demo. Speaking of the new ROM, when you boot it up, you will be presented with this screen. Long-term viewers of the channel will know that I've been experimenting with different resolutions in the past. The original game on the PlayStation had a horizontal resolution of 256 pixels. In my Mega Drive version here, I'm going to give the option of using that original resolution, but I'm also going to give a second option, a 320 pixel resolution option. It's going to be like a widescreen option almost. If you do choose the latter, then you'll be presented with this screen here, which will allow you to adjust your TV so that these circles look like circles and these squares look like squares. Those of you who watched the tutorial on how to change the resolution on the Mega Drive last year will know that actually the code involved in this isn't too difficult for changing the resolution itself, but when you do it as part of a game, you're going to offer two choices of resolution. It's actually quite complicated because it affects not only the resolution itself, but also the camera and the player movement and the level design and also even the enemy AI. Because of that, unfortunately it wasn't possible to offer the resolution option in the Christmas demo, so it really did require a rewrite and needs to be integrated as part of the game from the very beginning, so that's one of the advantages of doing this rewrite this year. As I quickly flick between the 256 and the 320 resolution modes, you should see that the assets shouldn't be stretched in the 320 mode, they should look pretty much the same, but you get a greater field of vision. There are some certain areas in the original where the screen itself was only 256 pixels wide, and in those areas I've had to add some graphics to the side, just so it fills up rather than having a black space. You can of course go ahead and choose the 320 option to play on your regular CRT TV, but I think those with lucky enough to have a widescreen CRT TV in the original console are going to have the best experience. Heading back to the ROM itself, once you're past that resolution screen, you'll get the Dracula head again, which people seem to like previously, so I've kept that in, and then you'll get to the intro screen. If you recall, I did have an intro screen which I showed quite a few months back now, maybe last year, and it looked like this, which is obviously I didn't have time to do the colors properly at the time, and the text just faded in and out, and people suggested they'll be better if the text scrolled instead. And you can see here, as well as doing the new colors much better, I've chosen more kind of zoomed in profile pictures of the characters, because I think for the Mega Drive's resolution that's a much better fit. For the full body pictures, it was hard to see all the details with the Mega Drive low resolution, so I think this is a better solution. While of course these kind of intro screens are a bit more superficial and aren't as important as say the gameplay for example, but I think the Castlevania games have always had some really nice intros, really get you hyped for the game, so I want to make sure that this Mega Drive version of Symphony of the Night had a really nice intro too. And I think that this one now, I think I'm quite happy with it. I need to work on the colours a bit more, but apart from that I don't think I'll make any major changes now. The main title screen at the moment is very simple. I think it's just a placeholder. We'll change it with something a bit more elaborate in the future, but what definitely isn't simple is the next screen. Maybe it's a bit too elaborate, the options screen. I really like this official piece of artwork here, so I wanted to try and include it in the game. Now for the colouring here, I didn't do it myself. I used that program that I covered in a previous tutorial earlier this year, which takes an image and you can give it an image and it'll create a Mega Drive palette for you so you can put it into the game, and I think it did a pretty good job here. I'm not sure if we're going to keep this in here, but let me know what you think. Maybe we'll swap out for something different later. Of course we also needed music to go with the option screen. Now in the original they used this chanting, which obviously we can't replicate on the base Mega Drive without a CD player. Thankfully one of the musicians for the project, Aliana, who's done quite a few music for the game already as well as the GG Shinobi music, he was up to the challenge and he wanted to try and recreate that in FM Sim, so have a listen now and let me know what you think. I think the FM synth gives it a real kind of spooky otherworldly vibe which suits the game really well, so a big thanks to Aliana for that. Next up we have the player select screen, and as I said before, I want to include all 3 characters in the game. Unlike the original, it's not just playing the character within kind of Alucard's story. They'd actually have a different route through the castle, so hopefully that'll make things a bit more interesting. They're not in the game yet, it's just Alucard at the moment, but I'm looking forward to adding them in the future. After the player select screen, we have the level select screen. Now, I'm going to eventually include some kind of save state system into the game, so you don't have to play through it in one sitting, because there's quite a lot of content here. And I think any fans of Rondo Blood will recognise some of the assets here, some of them from that game, some of them are from Symphony of the Night. I'm going to add some lines and arrows to make the routes more clear, but I think you can see here the basic routes through the castle and the way it's split, so you're going to have to find the secret exits to each level, which has a split, and all levels do split, but a few of them do. So that'll add another fun little aspect of replayability, where you have to find all the different levels of the game. You can see here it follows the order of the 4 levels we have in the game already. The rest I'm not going to spoil, you can have fun exploring that for yourself. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through every little improvement and change that I've made in this new engine. I'll just give you a few highlights. Missing from the Christmas demo but included now is water, as well as these merman characters. So the water uses horizontal interrupts of course, and since we're changing the entire palette, you'll see these CRAM dots here, which I've tried to cover up with these wave sprites. I'm still experimenting with this, and I need to add different physics when Alucard is in the water, of course, slower movement, but I think so far it's looking not too bad. On the topic of water, Pyron took the time to put together a little demo of the underground cavern section. Now, I've taken a slightly different approach here. I've just changed at the water level. I've turned on shadow and highlight mode so that everything should get a bit darker, and the only colours I've changed are the Alucard's palette himself. So you can see that there are fewer CRAM dots, and actually the CRAM dots tend to blend quite nice into the water surface anyway, so I think this one's looking okay. And of course, Pyron's done a fantastic job with the colour conversion as usual. You may have noticed quite a few changes from the footage I played at the very beginning of the video, but let me go through them quickly now. So I've redone the sub-weapon system, which was a little bit buggy in the Christmas demo, and I've also added some palette cycling for when the enemies get hit. As I know a few people complained in the Christmas demo, sometimes it was difficult to know whether you'd hit an enemy or not. I've also added the proper animation for the holy water, and we now have the Bible sub-weapon too, which I was really pleased to include, because that's my favourite sub-weapon in the game. It took a fair bit of time to do, but now I've got some new enemy destruction system for the skeletons, so you can see now they split apart into different pieces. This happened in Bloodlines too, but there's quite a bit of slowdown when you did this to an enemy, and I want to make sure that there weren't any here, so thankfully so far so good. There doesn't seem to be much slowdown, even though lots of enemies and sub-weapons are flying at the same time. If I have enough sprites and CPU power left over, then I might change this even more and add even more different objects flying off the skeletons, but for now I think 3 is enough. And I like the way you got the spinning head, and I've also added these little flame effects too, both to the candles and the destructive parts of the enemies. I've pretty much redone every single enemy AI, and I've added some improvements here. So for example, they can now climb stairs and slopes, which they weren't able to do before. Background tile animation was another thing that I wasn't able to integrate into the old build, the Christmas demo build, but I'm pleased to announce that it's back in here now. The technique of swapping tiles in and out of VRAM on the fly isn't just good for creating background animations, it can also be used to create an impression of an extra layer of background scrolling. This was a very common technique in consoles with only one background layer, such as the PC Engine, so I took inspiration from that to add a 4th background layer to this scene here. So the floor, the roof, and the very first set of columns and the statues are all done on the foreground layer, and then in the middle, behind that, you have these columns which are done with background sprites. Then behind that, you have the other columns and the basic stairs and so on, which are done with the background layer. And then finally, also on the background layer are the windows, but the windows, when you move, I've programmed it so that they animate the tiles, so it looks like it's scrolling in the windows too. While we're in the marble gallery area of the castle, you may recall that in the Christmas demo for the second half of the level, I had these rather ugly placeholders graphics. Last year, while I did do some of the colours for some of the enemies in the game, doing the actual levels themselves is really another level in terms of challenge, so I wasn't really confident enough to do that, so I had to keep these placeholders for now. But this year I've been doing lots of pixel artist practice, specifically for my GG Shinobi game, but for other things too, so I thought I'll give it a try while Pyron is busy with the Royal Chapel and other things. So this is my version of the graphics here. Now, it really does take a long time, and I really have a new appreciation of what Pyron does after having to do this myself, because there are so many colors you have to reduce, and also just trying to choose colors which exist on the PlayStation which don't exist on the Mega Drive, and trying to get choose new colors which do match the Mega Drive palette to replace them. And it's a very long and sometimes tedious process, but it can be a lot of fun too and very creatively challenging. So I hope you like them. You consider these placeholders if, you know, Pyron's still the artistic director of the project, so if he wants to go back and put his own ones here at some point in the future, then he's free to do so. I don't mind. For me, it's just good pixel art practice, which I need anyway. But for now, I think it's not too bad. I'm quite happy with this result anyway for my level. Maybe in a couple of years time I'll look back and think these look terrible, but for now I think they look okay. There's a lot more that I could talk about, but since this video is already over 10 minutes long, I'll leave it here and not waste any more of anybody's time. I'll leave you with this quick preview of the Royal Chapel area. As I said before, Pyron's been busy at work on this, and for many reasons, both on the artistic side and the programming side, this is one of the most difficult areas of the castle for sure. We'll go into more detail about it in a future video. I've just noticed that the channel's getting close to 20,000 subscribers now, so if you're interested in this kind of content and haven't subscribed yet, then please do so now.
I'm interested in this.
Working on this and GG Shinobi and my other projects as well as the tutorials obviously takes quite a lot of time and effort, so I have a Patreon account and any support is much appreciated.
You won't go unrewarded.
Until next time,
farewell.